Hello and welcome back to this SlimDevOps looks frantically around for the episode number 32, SlimDevOps 32. This was originally recorded live on twitch.tv/SlimDevOps on the 3rd of February 2022. We'd love you to come and join us as we do these interactive sessions. And so if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, please head over to twitch.tv/SlimDevOps so you can join us. It's a lineup of now familiar faces. Obviously, my friend and colleague Peter here, who is here most weeks, but also the second most regular presenter on this channel is Primoz. Hello, Primoz. Welcome back.
Hello.
Hello. So, Primoz, you've done 2 streams with me, and you were a community contributor at that time. But since then, you've joined our engineering team, so you're here in an official capacity today.
Yeah.
We didn't tell him he was going to stream. We just kind of pulled Big Pot in and said, "Hey, we don't know what we're doing, so come help us out."
Yes, I think we can say that this stream is in a line of streams that have become popular with our community, and they're definitely in the category of help. We don't know what we're doing. Where we we have an idea for what we want to do and we wing it a little bit, and we lean on the community and their tips and advice. So before we get into precisely what we're going to have a bash at this evening, as is typical, let's start with Primoz. Primoz, what have you been up to recently?
Well, I have been fixing my network and working on examples. That is what I do.
Examples for what?
Docker Slim and Slim platform.
Okay, so I've brought up Pete's browser here. So this is a whole slew of examples for Docker Slim, right? As a specific examples repo. So what examples have you been, curating and improving recently?
Most of the examples you see on the screen have been in the last month or two curated by me.
Right.
I have brought them to same standard and all that. And I created a few examples as well. A few examples for, I believe, Go was one of the examples I created. I believe Go Gene standard is the one that I created.
Cool. And so this is just all different languages. So you're learning kind of like every different language and how to make a little sort of sample app in it. And then you create a Docker file for that app. And then you show sort of how to slim that. Is that what this is?
I make a script with which you can see how it is slimmed, and how that in the you can see here it's a convenient make file. But if you go in the underscore Docker Slim directory, you see the underlying scripts that are actually run.
Excellent.
For example, slim.sh.
Cool.
So this is a rich, sort of a deep well of examples for different language ecosystems and
many different languages and many different frameworks, even inside those languages.
And so if there's anyone watching who hasn't quite pulled the trigger on getting into container optimization and minification yet, this is probably a great place for you to head to. And more importantly, you can go here. Primoz has put together these examples, but if you want to use one of these because it sort of reflects a technology group that you're using in your production systems, and you've got questions, then you can join our Discord. So you can find us at Slim.AI, and you'll find links to our Discord. And if you've got any questions about any of those examples, you can drop a comment in our Discord or our discourse, which is at community.slim.ai, and we'll be more than happy to help find an answer for you and help you on your way to minifying and optimizing your containers. I think, Primoz, we should probably do a longer stream looking at some of these examples in more depth. So if anyone's got like particular technology stacks they're interested in, let us know what those are. maybe we'll start with those ones first.
And if you have any technologies that you think should be included, please let me know in Discord. I always want more what people are interested to make more examples, because they are important part of every program and platform.
Indeed, absolutely. Pete, what about you? What have you been up to?
Well, now I'm going to be going through the Docker Slim examples to learn some new languages, but figure out how to write a Vue, hello world sample, I think. No, that's really cool. I mean, I was just poking around to see some stuff because I saw a few things that are related to some of the blogs that we're going to be releasing pretty soon. We're working on one right now that's around integrating testing into your container pipeline. And so, I think we've talked about a little bit, and I think once we finished up, sort of our photo app that we're working on in this section of the course, we'll switch to sort of things like CI and pipelines and how you set up tests. And of course, minification requires sort of some testing, or the HTTP probes to sort of show what the container is doing and teach Docker Slim sort of how to slim it. So testing is a really important piece. And, I've been getting into some interesting discussions in different places on social media about, testing. For all the time that we've spent working on testing sort of as an industry and all of that, it's still kind of the Wild West. It's still an unsolved problem. And there's been some great kind of thought leadership out, and not Slim.AI stuff, but, the external community about how we can improve testing. So excited for that blog post to come out. I think people will be really interested in that. And then I saw Big Pod put some seccomp improvements into that Python Flask example that he did. So we have a blog coming out on AppArmor profiles and seccomp profiles, and how Docker Slim can help you with those in securing your architecture. So pretty exciting topic. It's a little complex for my sort of newbie sort of side of container security and stuff like that, but it's an important topic.
Yep.
We're going to do kind of an explainer blog on that, and I think that'll be pretty interesting, and I think maybe we'll try to do a stream on that at some point. So yeah, that's
a really, really good topic to dive into. It's dense, but intrinsically linked to securing the operation of your containers, a concept that you should at least have a passing understanding of, I think is fair to say. So I'd just like to welcome back some of our friends. So hello John and hello Takov, welcome back to the stream. Lovely to see you joining us again, and also to our colleague Aisha. Hello. I have found a new bit of container tech today, in fact. So you may know that I do some sort of desktop Linux development as a sort of a passion project, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and they just passed by with a recommendation for a bit of software called Distro Box. So this is it, and what you can do with this is you can basically stand up containers of insert your favorite desktop Linux operating systems. So you pull the containers, you install the graphical apps inside those containers or your graphical development environment, and it automatically plumbs together all of the sockets and directories that need to be mounted so that your natural environment on your machine is automatically injected into these containers, so you can just pick up and run with development without any messing around. I absolutely love this. I'm going to be using the muck out of this for weeks now.
I was going to say, this sounds right up your alley.
Yeah. It's terrific. I can't believe that I hadn't come across it before. So if there is anyone out there that is, like me, keen on desktop Linux development or even tinkering around, that's a really useful tool, and I should definitely be spending some time working on that.
It's kind of similar to what Toolbox from Fedora Silverblue does, which you've seen on one of the previous streams.
Indeed, yes, we did a stream with George Castro last year. You'll find that on our YouTube channel. So we're SlimDevOps on YouTube, and you can find a video there where George Castro and I explored like the future of the Linux desktop with immutable base operating systems and containers as the place where you get all of your dirty developer work done. And I suppose we should just very quickly mention that next week we are going to be having Ian on the stream with us. Ian is in our engineering team, and he's going to be showing us how we minify Go applications using Docker Slim. So that's next Thursday, approximately 3 p.m. Eastern. As you saw, we were, 10 minutes late getting going today because reasons. So we tried to keep it close to the schedule. But get followed. I encourage you to follow. I can see now there's a load of you viewing, and we know from our metrics you come back and watch every week, but you don't follow. Give us a follow, and then you'll know when we stream, because we do more than just this regular slot. So come back, get followed, so we can invite you into these other sessions that we run as well. Right then.
I think this one with Ian is going to be really fun. We haven't really done Go on this yet, so we're showing BigPod's Go example, but we haven't really done like a Go container, and that's sort of a core technology stack that we have here at Slim. So Ian knows it really well. He has done DevRel in like a number of different countries. He has a lot of like really cool stories. So I think he'll be a great person to have on. So
indeed. We only have the best guests on this stream. And you just mentioned that Go is one of the sort of principal technologies that we use for our own applications and our stack internally, and to some extent we're mimicking that in the application that we've been creating, because we're using the same front-end technologies in our example app that we're going to be expanding on today.
Yeah. So what we're doing today, hopefully, challenge accepted, is we're going to try to add a database to our backend. So if you've been paying attention to the stream, or you've been following along, or if you have seen some of the tutorials that are available in our GitHub repo, you know that we've built this photo app, right, that we originally built in Python, backend, front-end, database, all monolithic Python photo app. It's just a photo sharing app with a carousel and some, categorization. A couple weeks ago, we took it and we made the front end into a Vue app, right? We made the Python the back end of the app, and now Vue on the front end, because Vue is just kind of a more modern framework. It's easier to work in. It's more beautiful. It has a lot of cool features and functionality out of the box. But the Python API works pretty well. The thing that backend service was doing right now, as of the last step, was that it is using a SQLite database basically to store information. And so we want to get rid of that SQLite database. We want to use a real database, PostgreSQL in this point. And we're going to try to do that. Now, we've done a few little practice runs at this, but nothing too successful. We got some feedback from you all in the community that it's kind of more fun when we sort of struggle through things. I don't know if that's you like seeing us struggle, or if it's programming we're learning together.
Are very popular on Twitch and YouTube nowadays.
Yeah, so
interesting.
So we're gonna be vulnerable, and we're gonna go into this one a little blind. We have a little directional kind of understanding of what we need to do, but we're just gonna try to add the Postgres container to our Docker Compose file. Then we're going to make some updates in the back end. We may get to the front end piece to kind of update Nuxt and stuff like that. Our Vue app that is hosted in the Nuxt container. We may or may not get there. We'll see kind of how well it goes. So that will determine whether you have to watch me write JavaScript or not, which is kind of painful in general. But yeah, so should we tuck into that?
Yes, I think just before we dive into it, I see that John in the chat was saying that he is writing Go APIs as we speak. So John, you definitely want to stop by next week. I think next week's stream is going to be highly valuable, and I can see that Primoz just been quizzing John as to what frameworks he's using and all the rest of it, and there's a little exchange going on there. So I know John has expressed some interest in using optimization in his day job. Big Pod. So, sorry, Primoz. So, maybe John, if you want to, I know you're in our Discord. If you've got any questions about like how to move forward on that, I'm sure Primoz will help you out. So, am I going to go over to your IDE then, Pete?
Why don't we start with the web browser and we can kind of tee up what we're doing, and we can jump over into the platform. So, normally, like we said, normally we have a pretty big README that kind of walks through sequentially the steps that we used. In this case, we're doing kind of the YOLO approach. So, put in a few examples that we'll be using to follow, including the ones Big Pod was sharing, but as I said, the first thing we're going to do is do our Docker Compose file, and we'll set up the database in there with the relevant volumes that we need. From there, we'll use this Python library called psychopg2. That's kind of the standard Postgres library that we use in Python. And then if we get far enough, we'll update the front end to kind of do the post back to the back end, and then the data will flow all the way through. We might do that in either an office hours or a follow-up stream if we don't get quite that far. Depends kind of how it goes. So first things first, so I'm actually going to bump over to, I'll just take a moment to show the sort of Slim.AI portal here, which is, our SaaS platform that we have here at Slim.AI. And, it's a really good starting place, especially like in this type of instance where you're like, okay, I'm going to use the Postgres container, but I haven't really used it before. I don't really know that much about it. Or maybe I actually use it a lot and I'm just kind of curious about what's happened with it. So I love PostgreSQL. It was one of the first databases that I ever learned. We used it when I worked at TripAdvisor and writing trillions of rows, into databases. It's really fast. It's really scalable. And so what I've done is I've actually added the container to my favorites here on the Slim portal. And so now I have kind of like quick access to it. So, there's a few other things that we've looked at, but here I've got Postgres. So I can just kind of quickly bump over, okay, we're going to use kind of the generic, the Docker official Postgres library. And, I can click on this profile. I can get a quick scan of it. I can kind of understand what's sort of going on with it. I'm just looking at the latest one right now. But, a couple of things that have been coming up recently with us has been the ability to diff different containers. So if I was interested in that, the database containers aren't kind of like the web or the base image containers. They don't quite change or have quite drastic changes. But if I click over here in the overview, what I can see is, this container has a bunch of different versions of, Postgres that are in it. So that might be interesting to me. I can see that it's sort of built on the base Debian image, which is good to know. I can see that it already has the open port, 5432, which if you've worked with Postgres before, you sort of know that that's the port that Postgres usually works on. I could even go over and see sort of how the entry point is constructed or what shells and sort of the different attack surface things. I'm not going to dive into that, but just wanted to kind of like highlight that, as you start working with containers that maybe you haven't worked with before, you haven't looked at in a little while, the Slim portal's container profiles are just a pretty good starting point for that type of work.
So just to segue with that a second, if I just move over to my machine here, I will very quickly bring up something. Oh gosh, how do I do this? Is it Control N? No, I'll do it in here. So if I just go to community, if I could just put two M's in that word, that would be better. Community.slim. Oh goodness, it's a bad evening to type apparently. Community.slim.ai. Over here, I put in here diffing container images with Slim.AI, and Ivan Velenchenko, I think.
Ivan Velichko.
Sorry, Primoz, you should do the pronunciation.
Ivan Velichko, I believe it is. Correct.
Thank you very much. We were sort of outlining like useful ways to use the diffing feature, and one is you've got a you've got a technology you're interested in. There's multiple containers from different publishers. How do you assess the which is the right container for you to be using? And Ivan came up with a great use case, and we've summarized it here. So if you head over to community.slim.ai, you can read that, and also some other tips and tricks we've got about container tech in general. And with that, I'll switch back to Pete's browser.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I wasn't going to do a diff of this container because I kind of know I'm just going to use the latest one. I don't
Right.
really necessarily care too much about the version of Postgres. I just kind of want the most recent one. I guess one thing that is kind of interesting, maybe not everybody knows, but in the platform, you can click on this Docker entry point.sh, which is actually in the container startup files of the file explorer. And so I can actually go in and see, even though I haven't created this container, I was just going to use this one kind of out of the box, so to speak. I can actually go in and see like, okay, this is actually the entry point script for this container. Now, I don't really know enough about Postgres to really understand everything that this is doing, but there are a bunch of environment variables and things like that that are getting set, and permissions and all kinds of good stuff that's in this file. So this is just some interesting, useful stuff to be able to look at if you kind of really, really want to deep dive, or if you're debugging, if we run into issues. Hopefully we won't run into those issues. But
in a previous organization, I worked with the Postgres team actually one-to-one in the same place at the same time on putting Postgres inside a different container platform. And I'm not surprised to see that the Docker entry point for Postgres looks complex, because it was a week-long sort of challenging project of us bringing Postgres into another container platform. There's all sorts of wrangling that needs to go on. So yeah, it's terrific that you don't have to deal with that stuff anymore. You know, on like the Metal, you can just pull in containers and know that all of those optimizations and tweaks are there for you.
Okay. Cool. Well, sounds good. Well, with that, why don't we jump into the, the first step in our sort of tutorial, and hopefully you guys can see my my IDE now, and it looks okay, and it's sharing okay, and I'll kind of go slow through this if people have questions or you want me to stop and talk about other things. But what I've done basically is to make a copy of the last app that we were working on, and I just have that in a folder. So if you remember, we had sort of our back end, which is all the Python-y bits, and then we have the front end, which is all the Nuxt and Vue.js-y bits. And then we have this SRV folder, which is just sort of a proxy for like a local file store that at some point will turn into a cloud type storage like S3. And then we have our Docker Compose file and the README, which is the tutorial text. So what we're looking at here is the Docker Compose file, and we sort of knew this work before. It's building from a Docker file in the backend folder, and that's what it uses to kind of build the backend. It connects that to a couple of volumes. And actually, I can see already that I'm going to have to make some updates to this, but and I actually don't even have those folders there. So we'll have to do a little bit of work here to kind of get this back up and running. We've commented out some things that we don't need, so I'll probably just go through and delete a bunch of those things. But we're doing the same on the front end. We're building a container. Again, this is the Nuxt container from the Docker file that lives in that front end folder. And then we've commented out all of these bits. We gave ourselves a little bit of a head start on making this database service. So again, we have two services, back end, front end. If we were to run this right now, it would create two containers. Hypothetically, it might work. I don't know if it would, but we don't need to do that right now. So we can just keep going. And I'm just going to delete out to start sort of some of the first things that, just clean up this Docker file a little bit, just so it's nice and
so can I
clear.
point out something? Because I introduced the concept of using a very specific Docker Compose version number, and I've since found out that isn't a common pattern. So where it says a version 3.8 at the top, it's most common to see just Docker version 3, Docker Compose 3. No.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that was something I introduced, and it turned out that was me being overly cautious to detail.
Okay.
Well, it depends on who you ask and what kind of rules they have in their department as it is. But yeah, most common is just setting to a major version.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, a couple things that I know I need to do off the bat, because we ran into them in some of the practice rounds, were these volumes are, as we said last time, you can't do sort of like relative links in these. So these are hard-coded links. So it's a little unfortunate. Obviously, you wouldn't necessarily run into this problem if you were doing this on like a server or a local host or something like that. But I'm just going to update the paths, so we're working out of the same sandbox folder that I had before, and that'll help us out. We also determined that we didn't actually need these networks per se right now, because we're going to be creating sort of the networks in a different way. A little bit of a convenience function that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give these containers names. So I'm going to call this one the photo backend, and I'm going to do the same on the front end, so that, I'm not kind of chasing down SHA values and, the kind of random Docker container names that are being created all the time. But, I'm going to kind of assume these things are working as we had built them before. And then let's jump into the sort of building out a new service. Okay. So I can see my kind of commented in text here. I think what I know is that what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new service called database. And BigPod, did you have something you wanted to add, or?
Well, I just want to comment. Don't you want to look for a photonic badger, the container photonic badger, because those names are random. The Docker name. Photonic badger, for example.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure exactly what you're
I was
getting
just
at.
making a joke about
Oh.
Docker names.
Oh, Docker names. Oh, got it. Yeah. I don't have the creativity of the product managers and product marketing people at Docker to come up with super creative names. So I'm doing boring names, but hopefully it's good for the stream. So good one. Okay, cool. So the thing that we're going to do, we're going to build this Postgres. We're going to build it from latest, right? So This is going to be the container name. Now, does this need to be image, or does this need to be build?
This needs to be image.
Image, that's what I thought. So we're not building a container in this one. We're going to pull the container we were just looking at on the.
So we're ingesting the latest image from the official Postgres publications on Docker Hub.
Exactly correct. Now, we know, and we saw, honestly, in Slim.AI, but, this would be pretty known things that, this 5432 is like the Postgres port. It's always the Postgres port. So here we're just mapping, one Postgres port to where we would expect to find the Postgres port. Again, I guess I'm going to need to put these in quotes, because that seems to be what we're doing in the other one. So I'll do that and keep it consistent. I don't know that I need to do that, but we'll do that. And then the main thing that we need to do is kind of figure out where we're going to map these volumes to. Now, if we look back over sort of in this SRV folder, which is again where we're kind of holding our static assets, we already have our ImageDB. This was the SQLite database that we had created before. We're not going to need that anymore, but I'll leave it for right now. But so we have this path that's SRV, serve, photo, data. And then Postgres is going to want two different data directories. So again, remember with volumes, we're mapping from one on our local host to the one that's in the container. And those are basically going to make those places the same thing. So I'm going to go grab, I just happened to kind of copy these down shorthand, but this would be part of the, kind of Postgres documentation if you were looking for that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I know that I need this /data/db, and that's where my database file is going to go. And I'm going to grab the same, kind of root file from my previous one. In this example, they are using relative paths, so maybe it's just something about my own Docker that's not the right thing. But if you remember, this was photo/data. And then actually, let's make a DB file there so that we're keeping everything kind of clean and clear. Post might have done that for us if we'd wanted it to, but I'm getting a little bit of an error. What is that? Expected string.
Yeah, there's no quotes around. You got quotes one end and not the other. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so I'm going to do the same for this side, and the second folder that we're going to want to make is for the sort of Postgres config files and all of that kind of good stuff. So I'm just going to call that folder Postgres, and I am going to create another folder called Postgres over here. So now I'm kind of mapping out my data directories, and then the one that's going to be in the container. So in this case, localhost is on one, and this one's on another. I am going
So I see, Pete, you're actually using some tooling in Visual Studio Code to make this easier for yourself. When you said, I'm just going to make this directory, you're using the extension for Visual Studio Code that can connect to your Docker contained environment and make these things, right?
I am. So I'm actually doing this on the local environment, and
Right.
actually I'm looking right now. I think I might need to get a quick refresh, Martin. So I might need to stop sharing for just a hot second, and I'll come back in a second. But yeah, why don't I show the Docker tooling in a second once I spin up this new container. So
Okay.
I think I might have just lost the share, but let me just bring that back real quick, and I'll get this going. So all right, so here, and then let me just do this real quick. And all right, hopefully I'm back. Are you guys seeing my IDE again?
There we go. We are seeing your IDE again.
Cool. All right. Blame Firefox for that little hiccup, but one of these days I'll figure out a way to stream long term, and it'll all be great. So the last thing I'm going to do, like I just mentioned, so this, if you can see this var/lib/PostgreSQL/data, that's going to be the folder in the container that that Postgres is expecting all of these comp files to be in and all of that kind of stuff. That's just where they put them. So now I've got that mapped to my local environment. That, in theory, is going to pop everything into this folder once I spin that up and run it. The last thing, I don't think I need this networks thing. I think that's just going to create some confusion for us. So we'll get rid of that for right now, and let's try spinning this up. Let's see how that works. Okay, so just as a reminder, I'm in the sort of root file of this, and all I have to do is docker compose up -d, and that's gonna take a little bit because it's actually going to build these containers for the first time, and we'll see how all that goes.
So whilst that's running, I have some feedback here from Mindy. So Mindy was just pointing out that also using links is deprecated in favor of using networks. So Mindy, thank you for pointing that out. This was one of those things where we were tinkering with it, to try and figure out the best way of doing things. If you've got the time to drop into, I know you're in our Discord, if you've got the time to drop in and maybe cite snippets of this compose file where we've got the networking set up wrong, we would really value your feedback on how we could improve that configuration. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, and if we can do it on the fly here, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, I think we've been asking a bunch of questions about that, and I think right before the last stream we got it to work with links and said we'll go with links and go from there. So
yeah, so if there's a better way, we'd love to know.
All right, so this is still building. I mean, I think the front end can take some, like the first time it builds, it takes kind of quite a while, and probably some optimizations that we could do in that node container that we have. But yeah, so we're building now. It looks like something happened, and conflict on the container name. Oh man, you got me. Big They were not unique enough. Or they were not unique, I should say. So yeah, I actually had a leftover container sitting out here apparently that I really should have gotten rid of. So this is the Docker extension for the for VS Code, which is really very good, and you can actually do a lot with it. It's very similar to sort of the Slim platform, which is just a web interface for this, but you can like sort of see inside your containers and see files once they're running and stuff like that. So I think what I did wrong was I just didn't remove this container.
No, the other one needs to be removed. That's the one that from before things started.
Oh, okay. I don't see that one running, so I mean,
That's the one that is the one that's it is remaining.
okay.
Container 101-net-3-database.
This one, okay.
Yeah.
So okay, let's see if that. Oh, that was actually the
current.
That was from when we were doing compose before. Got it. Okay. All right. So hopefully that got rid of everything that we needed, and we'll just clear all that out. We'll run another Docker compose. Yeah, here I can see I don't have any containers running, and now since these containers were all built already, then things are kind of in good shape. But okay, so we still have an error happening though, right? So I can see like this database container actually didn't run, or it spun up, but it stopped. And that's because we didn't quite do enough in the compose file to actually get it running. So the thing about the database is that it actually needs some environment variables that we need to add to it. And we haven't sort of dealt with these too much yet, because we've been dealing with sort of kind of more generic backends and front ends that just kind of run on their own. But we need to do a couple different things to get a database running. So in the environment variables, we're going to add a few things. We're going to add a name of the database. I'm going to call it test just for the sake of ease, and a Postgres user. And I'm going to call that Postgres, which is kind of a standard. It's probably not that safe. To show how not safe it is, we're going to leave our password as password, which is obviously not safe. But
so I would
change these.
Say this feels like a crossover meme from my own channel, where I routinely say my password is test, by the way. Every time I spin up a container or a VM to do any kind of work, the password is always test.
Okay, all right. Well, we could throw ourselves off. Actually, maybe that will be fun. We'll call this. Let's call our database photos. Okay, we'll start getting into a better kind of hygiene about how we're naming things. I'm going to leave the user as Postgres because I think that will actually help us. And then we'll make the password, the Postgres password. Again, this is the password to the database. We'll make that test. This PG data variable, probably a lot of people who are familiar with Postgres are familiar with this. This is sort of the root directory, but we've already actually mapped that.
Right.
As you can see, it's actually the same as that second one that we've mapped into the volume. So that's just kind of telling Postgres.
I think that one is actually not needed, because isn't that the default directory it stores data to?
Probably, yeah.
I think it is if you're using Debian or Ubuntu, but for completeness and explicit definition, I think that's a good thing to include.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I'm just gonna Docker compose down this one, and then we'll kind of switch back over, and we'll try to rerun it and see if that helps us get this Postgres container up and running. What we didn't do, and which we could do, and I think if you see the link that's in the tutorial that we put in the README file, you can spin up some like helper containers with this. There's adminer, there's PG admin, which is one I use most of the time. So you can actually like create kind of little sidecar containers in this same Docker compose file, and then those you can access on something like port 8088 or something like that, so you actually have a web interface to like kind of check the health of your containers and stuff like that. We just didn't take the time to sort of set that up. But the good news is all of these containers are now running. We can see that this database one, I'm not sure if you guys can see the name of that one. This one's called database. I didn't put in a container name for that one, so maybe I should do that. Container name, PG.
I've never used that container name keyword, but I'm going to start using that as a matter of good practice, I think.
Yeah, I find it a lot easier to do that. I don't know if other people do this for local development or not, but I think it's helpful for local development. I don't know if it would get you into trouble in like a production environment or whatever, but for me, it's just easier to know what the names of my containers are. And, as long as I'm removing them and not creating conflicts and stuff like that, then it's just easier than kind of either finding the SHA value, which is usually the container ID, or finding some random name. Though I do get a kick out of the random names that Docker creates, so sometimes they're fun. Okay, cool. So that's all running and that's all great and in good shape. So I think what we want to do now is we actually want to bump over to clear out some of this stuff. We want to bump back over to our, actually I'll Docker compose down while we're doing this because we're going to make some changes to our app. So I think what we want to do now is sort of update the backend. So we actually go back over to the browser.
Okay. 1 mini moment.
Browser. And that's good that I have a moment because I didn't have the right thing up. So let me just go back to kind of the README and the setup that we did. So I think what we did was successfully use Docker Compose to create a database service with volumes. Because as far as I can tell, everything's working. Of course, we won't know until we actually try to post data to it.
Right.
But I'll show you why I think it's working here in 1 second. And so the next thing we need to do is add psychopg2. We're going to skip the SQL alchemy part, though. I don't know. Happy to do that in like in office hours or in Discord sometime. SQL alchemy is an ORM. So if you were really doing like a large database at scale and you didn't want to just kind of be creating database tables and stuff like that on the fly, then you would use SQL alchemy to create an object model for your database, and just makes it a lot easier to program. It's kind of outside the scope of what we do with containers. Not really container related, though. Perhaps there's
and probably
some
overkill for our single table 2-field database that we're working
with. Yeah. I mean, when this becomes like the most popular photo app on the face of the planet, and everybody is using it, and we're sort of getting to Instagram scale, then we'll do SQL alchemy. But if that doesn't happen, then I think the 2-column data store that we have is probably sufficient to just use psychopg2. So why don't we try to get into that part? And so if we bump back over to the IDE, so one thing that feels good to me right now is that you can see that in this Postgres folder. So again, this is on my local environment, right? These are the folders that I've mapped over here. When we spun up the container, it created all this stuff, right? And so this is all the stuff that Postgres needs to run. And so that was in the container, but it's also now, I have it locally. So if I did need to come over here and do some like configuration changes, in this comp file and stuff like that. Yeah. So if I did need to tune it, then, I have that sort of ability. So it does make it feel like, our Docker Compose files is working. So that's a good sign. Cool. All right. So I do have a local environment running right now that already has sort of all of this stuff here added to it already. So what I need to do is I'm going to need a new Python library. I'm going to need one that's called psychopg2, which honestly, like when I found out about it about 2 months into my Python journey, I was like, that is like so metal, that is like so cool. psychopg2, right? And that's like when I really like fell in love with coding in Python and doing all that stuff. I was like, if these people are making psycho jokes about a relational database, then like, these are my kind of people, and I'm gonna hang out with them. So it's a super quick library. Big Pod was making the joke before that, sort of all of these libraries sort of treat database connections like almost all the same. So actually, we're just not going to need the SQLite thing, but we actually have almost like nothing to change in SQLite. So we're going to import psychopg2 is the first thing that we're going to do. And like I said, I already have that installed locally, but I am going to want to remember to add it to my requirements.txt, because if you remember, we're pinning our dependencies here so we know which ones they are. I just happen to know that like the latest version of this is 293. So, this requirements.txt file is going to end up in the container for the backend. So, we would get an install error if we didn't add that. You could pip freeze this and create a new requirements.txt after you install it, all that kind of stuff if you wanted to, but maybe people have better ways of managing virtual environments. I don't know. I tend to kind of brute force it. So
I think the requirements file is the better way to manage that. Pip freeze is kind of literally I'm putting my machine into production.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're a little lazy like me, you can see this. It's called the image scanner, which is like another project I was working on that probably has all kinds of data science junk in it that, I was messing around with. So if I pip freeze this environment, I would wind up with a requirements.txt. Well, I can even show you. This will just give you a sense of, if people are wondering why container minification matters. If I just pip freeze this environment,
wow,
this is like 30 lines of stuff.
Well, you've really gone to town.
Pandas, yeah, right. Like a lot of stuff that we don't need. And that would end up in our container. Well, it would end up in our requirements.txt. It would also end up in our container.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Docker Slim would
and probably only a fraction of those dependencies are really required to run the app.
Exactly. Yeah. As far as we know, it's just these. And if I'm being totally honest, we can actually clean up some of this because we actually aren't using.
Yeah, we're not using Ginger at all at the moment. Yeah, because it was a front end app. It was a monolithic app that did the front end and everything. And of course, it doesn't now. It's just the back end.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And so anything that's in here is going to wind up in our container. Now we can manually remove all of these things and do all of that stuff. But, I would guarantee you that when we run Docker Slim, it's going to look at Jinja and say that this never fired, so let's take it out of there.
Yeah.
There might be some things that we want to kind of whitelist in Docker Slim, but we'll give that a try later. So we got PsychoPG2 installed. Now we just need to kind of update some of it. Anywhere that we have these databasey bits in the Python, we're going to do a new connection here. But I don't think we're actually going to have to change.
Well, actually, you need only to change this SQLite 3 to PsychoPG2 and change what is inside the parentheses.
One nitpick I have with PsychoPG2 is they don't put an H in Psycho, and it throws me off. Like, I'm doing it for like 7 years. I've been coding Python, and I always spell it wrong. Okay, so yeah, and you're right, Big Pod. So what we need here is just some basic things that tell PsychoPG2 about the connection that we're looking for, right? So we need the database name and test, and we're going to need the password. And these are just all variables that get passed in a connection string from PG2 over to the container. I was actually just thinking about something. So we know from our Docker Compose file that the database name is photos. So we can pop that in here. We know that the user is Postgres, so we can pop that in here. And we know that the password is, of course, test.
My password is test, by the way.
I like that meme. I don't know. I don't get it. But,
you also have something missing.
What have we got missing?
The database, PsychoPG doesn't know where the database is. What is the host?
Yes, that's what I was wondering. So, yeah, Big Pod, maybe you can help us out. So, what's the host going to be? Is it going to be? So we know that when we do a Docker Compose network, right, that the service name is usually how we reference things. Is that the host? Is it database?
I believe the host should be database.
Okay. All right, let's give that a shot.
It uses MDNS to do that.
Sorry, say that last part again.
I believe it uses something called MDNS to do that.
So MDNS. So that MDNS is multicast DNS, which on desktop products, if you're on a Mac, for example, you might know as Bonjour, or if you're on Linux, it's known as Avahi.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I believe they use the same protocol in the backend.
Right.
I did not know that. Okay, cool. Well, good to know. I was actually wondering about that port. I'm going to assume we don't need to put the port in because it's the standard port, but I'm guessing
Since the standard port is defaulted to 5432, which is the
default. So we don't need to account for that. Yeah.
You could do a custom port there, but
you don't need to put host in if you're running on the same machine or in the same container, because it defaults to a Unix domain socket. But since we're running in separate containers, we need to add a host in.
Okay. All right. Hot tip. Good stuff. Cool. All right, so I think that works. Now, one thing that we did in our debugging thing is we created a little, in our test runs, was we created a little kind of just cheater flag for us here just to tell us if the database is actually running and we're talking to it. So assuming these things work, we're going to just create a little flag for ourselves that we can then cheat and know that when we hit this, we have this little kind of test endpoint in the backend app, and we can say, DB status or something.
Yeah.
And we'll just do a little cheat here. So that'll tell us if anything good happened with the database and it went up and ran. We have one other route down here, which is the actual upload post commands. Now we're starting to get closer to the front end. So this is the route in Flask that we get, posts from the upload. We're taking in the file name and the file itself, and we're doing some processing on it. We're checking to make sure it's part of the right, it has the right extension on it and all of that. So a little safety stuff. And then we're going to uncomment, because we had commented these out while we were working on the front end.
Yeah.
We do still want the category, of course. This is some MongoDB-ish stuff, and we're not using MongoDB right now yet. So we're going to do that. And then we're actually going to, I'm just going to grab the same connection string. Now, this isn't like great Python code, but it's okay. Little tutorial. Like we said, if you were really doing this database at scale, you would use SQL Alchemy to spin things up and spin them down, but we're not really doing a ton of stuff with this. So,
or even for something like this, maybe use a decorator on the function to get the, the connection credentials.
Sure, of course. Yep, you could do that too.
You need to update con.close.
Well spotted.
I don't know if that's is that like a translation issue, Martin? Because I always use CONN. Is that the American way of spelling con, and CON is the British version?
This is basically again of who you are. Some use with single N, some use with two N's. It's all who you ask.
Yeah. I would only use two. I would use two N's, but it wouldn't be a linguistics thing. It would just be because there are two N's in the word connection.
Same for me.
Okay. All right, cool. So the next part is we actually don't have to change anything. I mean, it looks like we were, I wonder when we did the first version of this backend, because it looks like probably I was being a little lazy about hard-coded dates, and all that kind of stuff. But we don't really care. We'll kind of make some improvements there later. But we're just doing a basic insert. This is such generic SQL. I'm not too worried about it. Possible that PostgreSQL, the SQL syntax for it is slightly different than what you might find in SQLite. But these are super, super basic commands, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. We might run into that issue, but I think this is pretty good. Big Pot or Martin, any doubts on this?
Nothing that's leaping out at me. No, nothing that's leaping out at me.
Right,
I have high hopes.
Well, Big Pod, you should never come to these streams with high hopes. You should come with tempered optimism.
And it rebuilds because we have some new stuff. So I'm going to just run the Docker Compose build, but then I want to hear why Big Pot is optimistic about this working.
Because we are at host.
Okay. You think that was the issue that we were having before? That
was the issue, I think. Or at least the issue we were facing at the time. Let's say this way.
All right. Well, oh, wait. Hold on. What happened here? It looked like my containers were up there for a second. Oh, maybe I just need to run Docker Compose up again because we just did the build. Or run them as -D. Is that what happened? Okay, well, the photo backend threw an error. So here I'm just looking over here, and so we see the front end built just fine. Well, we haven't touched the front end, so hopefully that didn't do anything. The database containers up, no problem, and the back end is throwing some problems. So let's try some logs here, right? Yeah. So another nice thing about naming your containers, that's just kind of a quick hack, is makes finding logs a lot faster. Oh man, it's my stupid little thing. This is why you don't do logging. Just stop logging things. That's
Well, or use a logging library rather than
Yeah.
Well, this isn't a logging
I
library.
don't even see
this
what I
is the
did.
JSON response. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
just need to make this like into a message then or something. So
I think
this is just that.
it has
bad
a
Python
problem
almost.
with how you it's called how you done it with the
Yeah.
database outside. I think it doesn't like that formatting.
There we go. Oh yeah. You know what it is? It's that we've been doing so much work in databases. I was thinking that this was like a SQL string, and it's not. It's just like it's just a string, and it's probably not even a very like safe one. So, so we'll just do this, right? And then now we're just sending that string there. Okay. The little Python strings. This, here we are doing Docker networking, and it's the Python strings that throw you off. So, okay, cool. Build those containers again real quick, which again, built pretty fast last time. I think the backend container Docker file is better optimized than the front end one because it takes a lot shorter time. Like we're changing application code in it. It rebuilds pretty quickly. It's not sort of reinstalling a ton of stuff, whereas the front end container, I think, still has some problems.
So I know you're using an M1 Mac, aren't you, as your workstation here, Pete?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, so I spotted this when you were building earlier. I could see the references to Arch64, which is obviously the architecture sort of identifier for ARM. I do wonder how many log files on servers in the world are confused because somebody has flung an Arch64 container at them as opposed to the appropriately matching architecture image, because Apple are very good at making rampantly popular hardware, and I know developers have been all over M1, but it's not a completely solved problem just yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great machine. It's super fast. It's super fun to work on. I will say that our CTO and creator of Docker Slim, Kyle Quest, when I said, "Oh, I'm starting, at Slim.AI, I'd like a Mac M1," he gave a little knowing eye roll, said yes. He was very kind about it, but that was before the sort of Docker support for M1 even came out, and I sort of didn't even realize it. And it's been interesting. They do have some tools like the BuildX builder and stuff like that, where you can actually create different architectures for your images, but it is a little bit of a pain to remember it. And every once in a while I'll find things where, I just forget that I built something like a container on a Mac, and so it's on a different architecture, and just weird things happen with it. So
I bet that is an increasingly popular pattern that is emerging in DevOps departments.
Yeah. I think I even posted something on Reddit about it, and somebody was like, "Yeah, I wouldn't use them on work, but they're great for personal stuff." And I was like, "Oh, well, I got one for work." So,
well, I'm not a fan of M1 from a distance, of course. I don't have one, but I'm not a fan because I've seen many problems with them running stuff. Even seen an image that has parts for talking with Postgres didn't work because it decided a package didn't exist in Debian repositories, even if it did exist.
Oh, I see.
And had Arch64 package, but just didn't decide it doesn't want to accept it because it was probably slightly different than what was required by M1 CPU. Because it actually isn't. It actually has additional stuff in it and can sometimes slightly throw certain programs for a loop.
Yep. Cool. All right. I have seen that too. So we're going to do a little test here. We have this curl command that Martin had created that just kind of tests the backend API. itself. And I'm actually going to try that, but we tried this before. And one thing we know about this is that we actually need to add an image to this, to sort of the root file of this. So I'm just going to do it real quick, and I'm going to take maybe a self-serving moment if this image appears to talk about.
Oh,
this is our little mascot Cody, and this is him wearing some headphones. So I'll just make a note for anybody that's in our stream and hasn't tried the Slim developer portal yet. If you go to Slim.AI and you click on the sign in link and you log in for free, always free, using your GitHub, you will get, after 7 days, you'll get a link to a survey. And if you fill out that survey, you get entered into a giveaway for headphones. We just picked our first winner, and you'll see this email again. So that's my quick little plug for our little headphone giveaway. If you do the survey and give us some feedback, we're really just flip back on the product.
I would just like to say, picking the winner, we wrote some code, and the code was peer reviewed and then observed to be running within reasonable parameters to make sure that the winning entry was picked fairly and squarely rather than...
Yes, and congratulations to Ahmed, who was the winner. I don't know if he watches the stream or not. I hope he does. If he's watching now, congrats. I sent you an email this morning. We're giving away a sweet pair of gamer headphones, and Big Pod, no, I don't think you're eligible for them, but you can fill out the survey nonetheless.
I don't think I even got the survey.
Well, it is something that we just started in the past months. So yeah, but definitely just like looking to get more feedback. We have some other like really fun community events coming up. So if you drop it in the Discord, please do. I'm going to do this curl command, and we're going to see if this backend is working. And if not, we're going to go kind of unpick that. What do you think, Big Bot? Is this going to work?
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Oh, it didn't. We got a break. So, yeah.
Now let's look at the logs.
Yeah. So now we can look at the logs. So we got this error. So this was just a return from the back end of the app. Let's look at the Docker logs for the photo backend first, and we'll see what happened there.
Sorry. I can see immediately what the issue is.
Guess what happened? We missed one of the cons when I was sitting here trying to be super.
Yes, you did. Yeah, there it is. There it is.
Boom. Oh my lord. Oh, jeez. I mean, that's like just right on script, right? We probably could have.
The fact that we spoke about it and didn't spot it, that's totally on us.
Yeah. Now we're really gonna be testing sort of.
So whilst this
that's
is
like
rebuilding,
a one-line code change, but
whilst this is rebuilding, we've had a number of people join Slim in the last month alone. I think 4 new people have joined the company, and one of those is Grace. Now, if you saw our tweet advertising this stream, you'll notice it was animated with a video. And Grace has been working with myself and Peter to create a revamped stream look and feel. So hopefully next week's stream we're going to have all new clothes. Well, not clothes, the stream itself is going to be altogether improved, because we now have professional assistants and not developers making user interfaces. No, super excited about that. Have seen some of the mocks for it, so definitely please throw us a follow, check in next week 3 p.m. we'll do that Go container, and we'll have Ian on, and it'll be like a brand new set and look and feel, and we just rocket ship over here. All right, so we rebuilt. We're gonna do Docker Compose up. That worked. Containers over here are running. Oh, they're looking like they're all green now. That's better. Oh yeah, are looking good. We were gonna try the curl command again. We have the pick of Jam and Cody. Oh, we got another error. What now? I don't know. Photo backend. It didn't like something about the
okay.
insert.
Okay,
So,
now that means you didn't define values correctly.
Psycho PG, yeah.
I go back to the code
Syntax error.
and go to SQL.
Apparently, I was wrong
Values,
about the.
I believe all you need to do
Oh,
is delete
insert
the first
into
three.
images.
That's okay. The question marks need to be gone, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Oh, do I have to like hard code these? I might need to put
No.
in sort of key value pairs.
You already have those, I believe. Let me see.
Okay.
Let me see how they should work. Because you already have some stuff.
Yeah, I know in certain versions of this there are, or in certain versions, again, this is like kind of why you would use an ORM, so you can abstract away from all of these types of things. But let me see where they do. Psycho PG2, cursor execute. I don't think we even made it this far in the first one. So if people have ideas, please let us know. I'm going to go back to Martin. If you want to follow along and go over to the web browser, I'm actually just kind of like looking through the
thing.
Psycho PG2 documentation, just if people really want to follow along.
Okay.
This is sort of
what
something tells me that
what I would do is replace those question marks with %s.
Oh, okay.
Well, each of them.
Each of them with %s, yes.
Okay, so back to
So it does the
idea.
standard formatting thing.
Okay.
Yep. And this is where I put in the standard SQL injection.
Yeah, that's
Be
standard
careful about SQL injection. Yeah. So if people aren't aware of this, this is the famous XKCD Bobby Tables cartoon. But basically, we're doing something a little dangerous here. We'll fix it once we get the app running, just to make sure that we know what's going on. I actually don't know if this one's dangerous or not, but
yes,
it is.
Because
Yeah. So somebody could.
You're just.
Yeah.
But in this case, actually, it's not, because of how you have a database running.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They would have to specifically name the file that, but since you're looking for JPEG files, he cannot do that. That person cannot do that.
Yeah.
They cannot do that. So in this specific case, you're safe, but in most cases, you're not safe with that kind of.
Yeah, that's why the question
code.
marks are there instead.
Yeah, we did also, if you saw in the API, we did also use the facilities of Flask to escape the parameters that were being passed in and what have you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we do things like secure file name and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we are being
we're
more
doing,
safe. I know from
we're
experience
doing a decent job. It's not perfect, but it's a good start. You
Yeah.
know, for our MVP, for our photo app startup, we're all right.
Yeah. Before we push this to production, we would get a little security review on this and
indeed,
and do it. I do know that PG2, Psycho PG2 has some like built-in syntax. I just don't want to bore people with me like looking it up and going to figure out what it is. So I'll do it after the stream and we can take a look at it. All right, let's try this one more time and see how this goes. All right, that also broke. So let's do our Docker logs again and insert into images. Images does not exist. This happens to me every single time I try to set up a database table. Like, oh, right, I forgot to create the table. Oh, I forgot to, put
so
these
that
in.
must mean that something in the...
You always need database migrations.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot easier to start with data in a database than it is to kind of create a new table. So, which again, SQL Alchemy would have solved this for us. But and I'm actually looking at the response right now, and our database little trick thing here is actually false, which means that this isn't working either.
Right.
So this create statement is actually the thing that's kind of throwing the error. What if we take this
even out? Could it be that it isn't even running? or is it?
Well, the one thing is that we.
Can you go again back to logs?
Yeah, good call.
And
Does
it says DB already created, which is correct.
Okay.
Which is correct because we created a database.
But we didn't create the table in the database.
Yes. So if we go back to the code.
Yep.
What? Huh.
Yeah. Does this have to do with our
strange.
Docker compose file? Should we call this? So the database is called photos.
That is okay. What is strange to me?
Database name is photos. Create images.
Images. It should create unless you need to add a schema before. So public.images.
Okay, maybe. That's a good idea. Okay.
Well, create.
Well, why don't we do two things? Why don't we do that, and then why don't we take it out of this try loop, so that we get like a hard failure on it, and we can see what that actual failure is.
Yeah.
I'll add public to this one too. So we're adding the schema to the front of images. That should store this in the photo database public images.
Shouldn't be required, at least according to what I'm reading, because that's the default schema. But I don't know.
Okay. This isn't.
We're gonna see what's wrong.
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out. So,
Although go back to the code, I might have maybe I saw something back up. Might have saw something or more remembered. Okay, you did it. You correctly wrote it this time. It's not. You wrote with two names.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. If that had been the error, I would have handed in my streaming paperwork and
it could very well be.
Find somebody new.
It could very well be because you had a try loop.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna find out what PsychoPG2 did not like about that. Yeah. So cool. Docker compose build. Container again. And should go pretty quick. Just installing the requisite Python bits. And now, all right, and we'll clear this one. We'll do Docker compose up. Cool. All right. So this one actually gave us a hard failure, so that's kind of cool. So we don't even have to try the curl command this time. We'll just go back to the logs and see what happened. Debugging 101. Connection refused. Okay, interesting. So in this case, I think what happened is we didn't get the host name right.
No, we got the host name right because it has an IP.
Oh, right.
So at least the MDNS worked.
Okay.
What is happening is not
Connections
accepting
refused.
connections on port 5432. Which I'm not sure how to really test outside of setting up something, but this should work.
Yeah. All right. So that's
if I look
the
at my
backend doesn't work.
configuration,
And kind of look at things. So it seems like everything's kind of running as we would have expected.
if you open logs for the database,
Oh yeah.
because we know it did work at one point.
Valid length of startup packet. So here the database was ready.
Yeah.
And here it was looking for connections on 0005432, which is expected, right?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah,
What
is
you might-
that because
what you
this
might-
is different, right?
No, that's okay. 000
That's fine.
means on everything.
Just in the local, yeah, okay.
It means on all
Absolutely
interfaces.
every
Yeah.
port.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I think I know what could be causing this, but I'm not sure. You might need to delete everything on a local in the volume
Oh, okay.
to go the invalid length of startup packet. I believe I saw this error before, and it was caused by basically something going wrong in the data.
Oh, okay. Like we tried to kind of like
Just the
post
whole
a command
directory
back to the
Postgres.
database. Yeah. So I'm just going to delete this and I'll create a new Postgres folder.
And now
It's like, yeah. Okay. So I should just be able to up again. I don't need to build again, right? We just think that there's like some bad data in the
down
current
and up,
database
and it should be working.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, down and up. Yep. One thing.
Do you think there is some sort of stale reference somewhere in that?
Yeah,
that
it
Postgres
might not
directory?
have shut down correctly, and it has some sort of stale thing.
Okay.
Seen that before when my system went completely wrong.
Okay. Let's see if this worked. No, that still exited. So let's see if that.
So
See if it's giving us the same error. Oh, different error this time, different logs at least. Or we haven't tried it yet. So...
this means it's still building everything, building itself.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. There we go. Ready to accept connections.
Yeah, now just start photo backend. So Docker container start photo backend, and it will restart that specific container.
Okay.
And it's working.
Oh. That's interesting.
Now just for.
Oh, is this because is this like a race condition thing? Do we need to put like something in the Docker compose file to like depends on, or what is that command?
I think some sort of depends on would be required, but I'm not sure it would actually matter. Okay. Because I don't know if the Postgres actually properly tells Docker it needs to wait for certain condition to be available. So it would start automatically. That would have to be a health check, I believe.
Okay.
But I'm
well,
not
let's
sure
just see if we can post this.
Works.
Okay, so we're still getting an error, but we're working through all of these bugs, which is good. So let's see what the backend now says. All right, into public. Oh, now we had public images does not exist.
Now it doesn't know public.
So maybe those schema references are not required now. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a guess.
Okay, so I'm going to take that one out, and I'm going to take this other one out.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, at this point, I would probably start thinking out spinning up pgadmin.
What? Well, which is
in action.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah. I can do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's would be my next step in seeing what's wrong.
Yeah, that is fine. And if we get there, I'm not sure what people's level of interest is, but we can do that. That makes sense.
It's a good debugging step, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seeing what database actually does.
Yeah. I'm gonna delete this Postgres thing again, just so we don't run into that. I'm gonna build it again. Docker compose build. Changing some stuff about the container. We want to make sure that our app is run well. Definitely next time we can do some Dockerfile stuff. And then we'll go ahead and do up here. And we'll click over to our Docker containers. The backend is up and running. Now the backend is exited.
Which is what we expect since it's not yet, since the Postgres is not yet working.
So we should definitely make sure that that is depending on, okay, so we spun that back up. Okay, cool. Container magic worked. And now we're just going to try this curl command again, and that broke one more time. So let's go back to the logs of the back end. Insert images into value. So images is just not getting created.
Undefined table. So at this point, I would go in PGM and create table myself.
Yeah. All right. I'm opening up. PG
whilst you
admin
do
right
that,
now,
I'll just explain sort of some concepts here. So we're trying to sort of, well, we are not trying, we are YOLOing this. And the way that you would do this in production is that you would have some kind of database, what's called a database migration script, which runs in order to instantiate the schema of your database, if it doesn't already exist, of course, or if you are deploying a new version of your application, it would add any new fields to existing tables or create new tables that were added behind, feature flags in that new version of your app, so that as that database container is brought up, the database is reconfigured appropriately for the version of the application it's about to run. Now, we tried to ninja that in a try except at the top of the script to say, if let's try and make a table, and we'll assume that if that worked, we'll carry on. But that's clearly insufficient. So what Pete's doing now is, well, in fact, shall I go to your browser? Is that where you're doing this?
I'm actually not in the browser, but I can try to share something slightly different. So why don't I, and I don't know if this will mess us all right up, but we'll give it a shot. Oh wait, nope, don't want to do that. Okay.
Right. So Mindy has also got some advice for us.
Okay.
So Mindy says, it could be that you need to add init true to the database in Docker Compose, so it passes the exit events properly to the Postgres process.
Okay.
Right.
Yes. That could be, and then it wouldn't break everything.
So init true to the Docker Compose file.
Yes.
And that's just its own command. So I'm over in my IDE. I do have this up here now, and so we can at least look into, and if people haven't used it, this is the PostgreSQL sort of.
Am I in the wrong place?
Or can you see this, Martin? I'm not sure. I did a little
I've
changing
displayed it.
Cool. So we can see here we have schemas. In our public schema, we would have tables. In tables, we have nothing. So I could just create this image in tables. I'm curious if Mindy's thing would work, but why don't we create the table in here? Do images. And then obviously we'd want to add some columns here, right?
Click the plus button on there.
I haven't done this in a while. All right, so if I go back over to my app, I'm going to get, so we need 3 columns, right? We need a date, which is text. We need an image underscore name, and we need category. Okay, so we're going to have date, which is text, the name of this.
What I normally use is char varying.
Yeah, varchar, yeah.
Character varying.
Not an array, okay. And then we have.
Well, you need to add up. I believe you need to add up a length.
Do I need to add that?
I believe so.
Okay, let's just call it 32 for fun. Okay. 2, and then we can do category. A lot harder to set up a Postgres database than it is to do a SQLite database, but for good reason. Okay, So that should
I
work.
actually use pgadmin to first create all tables and then basically creates the statements from that, because it allows you to actually see statements exactly like that.
Okay.
So you
Do I need to
create
do
it
like
in
a
the UI
create
and
if
then
exists?
use it to sort of extract the schema.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly what I need.
Okay. All right. Well, if we bump back over to the browser or to the IDE, I think. Hopefully you still have that. And Martin, let me know if the IDE is not up. I can reshare
It's on the screen.
Okay, cool, great. And
although I'm not seeing where you're typing at the moment.
Yeah, it might not be open. So let's let's do that. Is
Okay,
that
there we
up
go.
and running?
Yep.
Maybe.
Now we're in business. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so we took our containers down. We added Mindy's advice, which was to add this, and hopefully I got this right. Tell me if I didn't. Init equals true to the database. Should we add depend? What's the require? Is it requires or what is it? The
view depends on.
Yeah, and then I need.
No. Yeah,
database?
like that. Yeah.
Okay. So that hopefully solves kind of 2 pain points for us. And then we'll do Docker compose. Then we'll and see how that goes. We at least now know the images things there. Might get an error. Oh, it's all working now. Oh, no, backend exited again. I'm just kind of curious.
I guess it only checks for it ready.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
it is. It's on that connection is refused, so it's still just like waiting for that thing to come up. So we got to figure out how we kind of delay that. And I wonder if we just change the order of containers, if that would matter. Docker container.
No, as far as I know, it wouldn't.
All right, so that one, what? Nope, that did not start running again.
Can you check the logs for PGDB?
Oh, images already exist. So yeah, we need to kind of update that app.
That is
I was
because
wondering if that was going to happen.
It is there.
Yeah.
It's good news, at least. Yeah.
Good news. Something's happened.
Yeah. Who are the SQL experts here? Can we do like? Does that work?
That should work.
Okay. So we do create if not exists for that database table, and then.
And whilst that's building, Mindy is being a mine of information here, so they've got some advice here on like how you actually handle the correct sort of initialization of a database as per the entry point that's documented in the Postgres Docker documentation. So I've just put that up on the screen because whilst we're sort of hacking through this in order to get to ourselves to a favorable outcome promptly, you might want to read those words and heed them in order that you don't run into or bump off some of the hard edges that we're experiencing at the moment.
I'm kind of looking at those now. So calls the initdb.
Oh, sorry, I've just clicked the button.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Thanks, Mindy, for sharing that. That probably would have been a good thing for us to look at before we bumble their way through this.
It's in the Twitch chat. If anyone wants to read that in slow time, it's in the Twitch chat.
Yeah. All right, so this one's still not running, and we're getting into kind of some challenges here.
Oh, it didn't like the if.
No, it didn't like if not exists. Well, why don't we just see if we can just
comment?
Is it if not exists create rather than create? Is it?
No,
oh, well, okay,
it should be like that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's just
go again.
We're just gonna kind of try to brute force this one at this point. So since we're at about 2 hours, see if we can get to something useful. I am curious, Martin. I don't know if you had read and kind of internalized what Mindy had posted from the docs in the Postgres thing about how to do this. Like, what was the kind of key error that we made?
Well, it's not an error so much as I suppose best practice. So you can ship alongside your container a compressed or a plain text SQL schema and drop that into a Docker entry point initdb directory, and it will automatically ingest that and stand the database up for you.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And everything stood up correctly right now. So now the curl command is what we'll see if it works.
Like this is the moment. So long as we have the curl command.
Hey!
Yay! Success! We uploaded to the database. I'm not even gonna see if we have the database. No. I can actually look now at pgadmin and I can go see if it's there. But we do actually. Well, it's kind of funny because I don't see anything storing in this database. So I wonder
it should be in Postgres.
That's where the actual data directory would be.
Yeah. I don't know what exactly is.
Yeah, I'm not going to open it up because we can bump over to pgadmin to see if it's there. I'm not going to look at the front end. I guess one thing I could do. Well, actually, yeah. Why don't we do that, Martin? If you bring over, I think under browser now we have the tables, and I can actually just do a quick, kind of select star from all. Oh, except it doesn't look like it posted into that public images, so we might have a little bit more debugging to do.
So check the logs. That's always first thing to do.
Yeah. My guess is, and I won't bore people with this sort of like admin file of it, is we got some sort of like type errors wrong, some sort of type error between Python and backend and Postgres and stuff like that. So, but I think it's probably a good stopping point. We know that the post is working. We know that it's trying to add data to the database. We can look up what those errors are and basically follow the instructions Mindy sent us for next time so that we are indenting this database correctly, and then we'll have sort of a working database that's reading data and getting data back. So with that, all we have left to do is to kind of create our front end so that we're getting the database calls, the API calls through the back end on that front end piece and that view app, and then we'll have a full working app and we'll start getting ready to ship it off to production. Is that right?
And and when we talk about shipping it off to production, what we're going to be the wrong thing. I do apologize. When we talk about shipping it off to production, what we'll be doing there is actually trying to minify like the whole thing, the logical whole of those parts, which is a front end app, a back end service, and the database container. How do we minify those as a cohort? So that's what we'll be looking at eventually, and also how do we explore each of those and diff them and debug them and all sorts of those sorts of things.
Cool. Okay, well that was fun. It was harder than I thought, but we actually got farther faster than I thought. And if we had only read the docs a little more closely before, I think we would have avoided some of that database setup type stuff. And but yeah, I feel pretty good about where we are. I mean, I think once we have sort of like a pretty stable Python backend, a pretty scalable database situation happening, a Docker Compose file that builds pretty quickly, and some improvements on the front end, and this thing will be singing. So
indeed. Right. Well, I think what we will do then is we will wrap it up there. I'm going to have a look. Some of our friends were streaming earlier. Oh, they have finished, in fact, now. So we'll we do have let's have a look at this. So we've got Anthony from Kitta, who's streaming React and NuxtJS and Mongo. So they're doing some full stack development. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We will head over there because there's an overlap there with the technologies that we've been using and enjoying to use. So we will spread the love. So thank you all very much for coming. We'll be back again soon with the next thing. And it's Go containers next week, minifying Go applications with Docker Slim. So that's what we'll be doing next week. Thank you all very much for coming. We will see you very soon. Bye for now.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the help, Mindy. Awesome.
Bye, everybody.